Hey guys, Willow here to tell you about the latest from the Hellfreaks Pitch Black Sunset, out April 14th on Napalm Records. This album has 9 tracks, 27 minutes in length, and this is the band's 5th full-length studio album. They are a Hungarian post-hardcore band. When I look at the design, I was actually surprised for an album with 27 minutes that they took the time to create a sense of beginning, a sense of middle, and a sense of end. Some sort of border, some sort of shape to try to control the overall chaos that exists within this record. This is a very versatile, a very diverse sounding album, and it's really hard to find the connection between the songs, and it's even harder to find the path that you can travel from first all the way to the last track. Having a song like Sunrise at the beginning, Chaos in the middle, and Sunset at the end helps shape the album a little bit better. Being 27 minutes in length also doesn't give you a lot of room to work with. So when you look at that length of the album, when you look at this design, it's a little bit easier to control the chaos with this approach. Without it, the album would be extremely volatile and it would feel a lot more like just a collection of songs thrown in together than an actual record that has a sense of purpose and a sense of continuity. So I appreciate the efforts going into the design. I'm not 100% sure that they give the listener more than that chaos that exists between the lines. As far as the sound is concerned, like I said, this is a very diverse, very eclectic, a very versatile record. Post-hardcore, punk, pop, skater punk, pop rock, punk rock. I mean, this album has everything that you can think of within those genres influencing the direction of these tracks, not just musically, but also lyrically and even vocally. The problem that I have with this album is not the eclectic sound that these songs have. I can actually appreciate the individuality of each and every single song. I can appreciate the different starting points, the different influences, and then what they took from those influences in order to make songs that connect with themselves. My issue with this record is more on the production side. I felt the album sounded too dense. There was too much of a one-size-fits-all approach from beginning all the way to the end. If you're looking at a record that has more of a predominant post-hardcore sound or even a predominant punk sound, this density of volume, this density of how the elements intertwine with one another, it's better to understand and it's better to digest. It makes more sense in those specific genres. But it's some of the other influences that this album has. The album required a little bit more of a refined approach as far as the production was concerned. The songs should have had better shape, should have been better defined. All the different elements, either be the synths, the guitars, the bass, the drums, or even how the vocals come in, all of them could have been better segregated from one another for clarity purposes, and then bringing them in a way that they enhance each other and not necessarily become counterproductive to one another. That one-size-fits-all that I feel like this album offers, it takes away from the clarity of the influences, it takes away from the clarity of the concept of the tracks, and it takes away from the clarity of the execution of said songs. And this hurts the overall sound experience throughout the entire album, because songs that needed to be a little bit more visible become extremely murky. Now, you can talk about some of the individual elements that this album has, and I think the guitars on this album had a little bit of lack of definition, and some of that density that I was talking about in the overall sound experience is really a representation of how much unclear sometimes the guitar sound is, the definition of that same sound, and the direction that that sound wants to take. Outside of some pockets here and there, a few songs here and there, where you see a complete shift or you see more of a move and more of a direct approach in terms of what they're trying to give the songs, overall I felt like the guitar sound was very lackluster. Unlike the drums, I actually really enjoyed the drum sound on this album. It's simplified, but it's also amplified, and it creates a very good backdrop for every single song, and it adds value to the way the tracks come together. A little bit more diversity in the execution impacts the overall diversity that exists in the overall experience. So I enjoyed tremendously the drum sound. I wish the guitars had gone a little bit more down that same path. It would make the album come alive a little bit better. Now, vocally, it's definitely one of the highlights, if not the highlight of this record, because the vocal performance was on point on every single song. I always felt like that it was energetic, that was raw, that it had a sense of an organic delivery that felt natural to the way the song sounded, to the way the songs feel, to the lyrical content of the song. going outside the box and using other elements like electronic elements in the vocals, using harsh vocals, clean vocals, pockets of harsh vocals here and there to really enhance or bring out some of that that aggression that the tracks had subdued by some of the melancholy of the vocal approach, using layers and textures vocally in order to create more volume, in order to make the songs a little bit thicker, adding density to the sound of the vocals across these tracks, the same way the sound already has that built-in density. So vocally, this is an extremely strong album from beginning to end. It's an interesting album. It's an album that really makes you feel like there was a deep connection with the material from the person that was singing said material. So that makes the songs come alive a little bit more. It gives a little bit more soul to the tracks, and then obviously gives a little bit more soul to the overall performance. But this is a record that feels really short. And I'm not just talking about because it's 9 songs and 27 minutes in length, but it's an album that feels short. Adding that intro, adding that interlude, adding that outro help create some shape in the chaos that exists in this album. It's not enough to create that shape. It tries to define it, but it's not enough. But it's also not enough to make this album feel like there is a sense of journey, like there is a sense of path, that there is something that you're going to learn from this record, that there is a progression from song to song. This album is more about snapshots, so it would work better in an EP format style where you're not expecting anything to really be laid out in front of you, where you're coming in just to really get the most out of each and every single song. This album is almost built like an EP transformed into a full-length record, and when you try to do that, you end up with that perspective of not being one or the other. You're caught in no man's land, and that's exactly how this album feels. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Body Bag, punk rock song, guitars and drums really creating the backdrop of the track with a more dynamic vocal approach in the verses, and then allowing the chorus to feel brighter, to feel bigger, vocally layering a lot of approaches, or 2 different approaches I should say, in terms of how those vocals are delivered in the verses, allows the chorus to also be more impactful, more energetic, because this is a very energetic, fun track, musically and vocally. It's a song that has a lot of movement, and then infusing the synths in the last third of the song brings in a more pop sound to this overall punk rock song, and that allows you to see that energy coming into the surface and becoming a little bit more easy to understand and easier to digest. Next we have a Rootless Soul Riot, a very driven guitar song, which is not the case throughout the entire record. So it's easier to detect when the song has that backdrop of the guitars really pushing the track forward, because it stands out in the crowd. The harsher screaming style vocals add heaviness and volume to the overall song. The cleaner vocals bring in some melody and melancholy to the track, but that energetic guitar sound that pushes it forward allows you to feel like those 2 worlds can coexist under the same umbrella. Once you start to move through this song, you go through a portion of the track that feels like a throwback to a Rage Against the Machine song, specifically the solo on this track. It has elements of Rage Against the Machine in terms of how the guitars sound, in terms of how they're put together. This adds to the overall heavier side, more aggressive side of the track. The vocal bridge in the last third brings in the melancholic side into the forefront. So it's a song that has 2 sides to a single coin, and sometimes it brings them together, and sometimes it creates elements that can show you the differences between them. Last but not least, PBSS. This is a more electronic infused song, and you're going to see that specifically in the vocals. The vocals have those synths, that electronic element that makes the experience, once again, thicker. It makes the experience not only electronic, but it makes it sound there's like multiple voices working. The chorus is definitely bigger. The chorus has definitely more volume. The verses are a little bit more subdued with those electronic elements infused into the vocal performance, which gives it some substance around it, but at the same time, there's not much else besides that really happening on the track. The clean vocals create some ebbs and flows throughout this track. Closing with harsh vocals works really well because it moves this song into an almost post-grunge style track, and that makes the song come alive at the right time. It makes this a very dynamic track all around. There's at least three to four different vocal approaches from start to finish. I don't think there's a song as dynamic vocally on this record as this one is. I just really enjoyed the movement that this track offered. Musically, perhaps not moving as much, not as dynamic as it is vocally, but that post-grunge, I'm going to call it that post-grunge closing moments at the end of the track works really well. It almost created an exclamation mark on this entire track. This is it, the Hellfreaks with Pitch Black Sunset, out April 14th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.